possibility more closely, this might have been averted.
There were a number of individuals who happened to receive training at flight schools here is news, quite obviously. If we had understood that to be the case, we would have, perhaps one could have averted this.
Now, one of the things law enforcement authorities say, and we've been seeing this in the evidence of backtracking the steps of these men, is that they were very clean-shaven, they kept to themselves, very quiet. Neighbors just constantly keep remarking that it was just very difficult to know. So that's one of the things that authorities are also wanting that kind of information to get out so that people can perhaps be on the lookout for people that might be linked to this. There's also, of course, concern that this could cause a backlash against a lot of innocent people, and nobody wants that. Judy?
All right, Eileen O'Connor, thanks very much. And, of course, we'll be coming back to you as the day goes on. Darren Kagan.
Judy, we want to get our viewers up to date this half hour with the latest headlines in America's new war, beginning with President Bush, who today declared to the nation, quote, "We are at war." He is huddled with his national security team at Camp David. He is planning retaliatory action against those behind Tuesday's terror. Today, Mr. Bush, for the first time, publicly branded Osama bin Laden as a prime suspect. The first of what will be thousands of funerals was held today in New York outside of Washington. New York's fire chief, first deputy, and chaplain are being memorialized. Also in Arlington, Virginia, service for Barbara Olson. She was the wife of U.S. Solicitor General Ted Olson, and she was on board that flight that crashed into the Pentagon. Also well remembered here at CNN as a conservative commentator. And the financial fallout from the terrorist attack is beginning. Continental Airlines today saying it's laying off 12,000 workers. The airlines have been shut down much of the week, of course, and many are operating on reduced schedules now. Just the first of, Aaron, I'm sure what we're going to see in terms of economic impact. The airline's just one of many businesses that are going to feel the brunt of this disaster.
Well, and they are big businesses. There are, in this city at least, lots of small businesses, delis, grocery stores, dry cleaners, the rest, that down in that part of Manhattan behind us that have had no business either. It's a very difficult time, and adding up the cost of this will take a long time, but it will be enormous. We mentioned a moment ago that there was a funeral here in New York for the Reverend Michael Judge, one of the fire department chaplains. Among those who were there today, New York Senator Hillary Rodham Clinton, and with Mrs. Clinton at this was another New Yorker, her husband, the former President Bill Clinton, and he talked to us briefly as he left.
I think the story of the courage of these firefighters is just beginning to be known. The dimensions of it, the numbers of their losses, and how they perished. It was an amazing thing. An act of courage and love that was just amazing. I'm honored that we could be here today and that my wife could speak, because we admired Father Mike. But he today stands for all the firefighters and the police officers and the others who lost their lives here.
A little hard to hear at points, but at one point he said the acts of heroism were amazing. The former president with his wife at the funeral of Reverend Michael Judge. One of the most important, both symbolic and practical things that need to happen now after this terrible tragedy is that Wall Street needs to get back to business. Wall Street, of course, has been closed. All the exchanges, the exchanges here in the United States have been closed since Tuesday. This weekend down on the street, they are testing the systems, the phones, the computers, everything else, in hopes they'll be able to open Monday morning at 9:30. Greg Clarkin is down in the street, literally on Wall Street, and can tell us more about that. Greg.
Hi there, Aaron. I'll tell you, after hours and hours of testing and retesting the infrastructure system at the New York Stock Exchange this morning, just moments ago, Dick Grasso, he's the chairman and CEO of the NYSE, he said our systems are all go, and come 9:30 Monday morning, trading will indeed resume at the New York Stock Exchange. So this morning what we had were technicians going over the vast telecommunications network that links NYSE member firms and other locations and processes electronic trades. So that system has proven to be up and running and intact, and they do expect to have trading begin at 9:30 Monday morning. Now, you may know the opening bell will be something special. Dick Grasso promised that in his conference call that is still underway. He said they will ring the opening bell. There will be 2 minutes of silence followed by a rendition of God Bless America, and the folks ringing the opening bell will be city, state, and national government representatives, as well as representatives from the New York Police Department, Fire Department, and Port Authority. Now, a little bit earlier this week, when trading was shut down on the New York Stock Exchange, there was a memorial bell that was rung in honor of the victims of this tragedy, and so they will resume trading again on Monday morning with the traditional opening bell and quite a ceremony. And indeed, Aaron, this was a very symbolic move by the New York Stock Exchange to make sure that trading would resume on Monday morning. They have been working around the clock with Verizon, the local phone carrier here in New York, to make sure that the telecommunications system is up and running. And again, after technicians tested and retested this morning, Dick Grasso just declaring that indeed trading will resume Monday morning at 9:30 on the New York Stock Exchange and the NASDAQ. Aaron?
Greg, a couple things that just help our viewers not familiar with New York. Wall Street, the stock exchange, certainly a shot they're very familiar with. The inside of the exchange is how far from Ground Zero?
It is maybe a block and a half to 2 blocks east of Ground Zero, Aaron, and we were down there yesterday speaking with Mr. Grasso and getting a tour of the building, and he said fortunately the building has come out of this unscathed. It is a landmark historic building, more than 100 years old, but despite that, the building did not suffer any structural damage. They still want to make sure that water, electricity, the basic functions necessary for the folks coming to work down there will be intact, and although that may be spotty at times, they believe they have enough adequate facilities to take care of things. And then also, Aaron, there's the logistical problem. There's a lot of folks in that building. 3,000 alone work on the floor of the New York Stock Exchange. They've worked around the clock with the city to make sure that folks have access to the financial district and to the NYSE specifically. There'll be incredibly stringent security measures to gain access, but they do believe that all things should go smoothly. And again, the NYSE itself, that landmark building, very fortunate that it did not suffer any structural damage. Grasso pointed out a lot of the improvements made over the recent decades to reinforce the building, and that was one of the reasons they believe it came out of this unscathed. Aaron?
And just one other thing. When you talk to people associated with the New York Stock Exchange, the other market as well, are they nervous about not the mechanics of the opening, not whether the phones work? I'm sure they're nervous about that. Are they nervous about what investors are going to do when that bell rings? Sure,
Aaron. There is a little apprehension as to what to expect after 4 days of non-trading. There is a kind of common belief that you may see a bit of a knee-jerk sell-off, a little bit of volatility, and also keep in mind just some of the elements of the market. There's been an incredibly weak economic picture, an incredibly weak corporate profit picture for people to deal with, not to mention the long delay in trading. But folks do believe that after the early choppiness, which may result in a sell-off early on, that things should stabilize fairly quickly. And some folks do believe this prolonged delay in resuming trading may actually have helped to calm people down a little bit, rather than if they were to have been able to resume trading earlier this week.
Yeah, people have been able to see, professional investors at least have been able to see how the world markets have responded, and there was some choppiness, is I think the word you guys used, but some choppiness, but they seem to stabilize, and perhaps that's what we'll see Monday. That's going to be some moment, though, isn't it, when that bell rings and the business of American capitalism, symbolically at least, begins again. Thanks, Greg.
Sure.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, it will indeed, Aaron. That opening bell, they've turned into quite a ceremony, and they do believe that this one will be a very emotional morning there as these folks get back onto that floor.
Thank you very much. Behind us, every minute or so we look in back of us and see the plume of smoke, and every day it seems a little less, but still today, as I look back there, it's still there. We're Saturday afternoon, and that site continues to smolder. And now I wonder at what point we'll all look back from our location here, and it will be clear that there won't be that smoke, that awful reminder of what took place. As we go from hospital to armory to funeral, we forget sometimes that in all of the madness that has gone on, in fact, there were moments of great joy. People who thought that they had lost someone found out otherwise. Reunions took place. Families made whole again. Some examples here from CNN's Bruce Burkhardt.
Another day in the Red Cross shelter in Gramercy Park for Rose Franklin. Another day wondering what happened to her husband, Harry.
I hear a bang.
On Tuesday morning, Election Day in New York, Rose and Harry were working as volunteers at the polling station on Chambers Street, just a few blocks away from the World Trade Center.
I go out and I see all that smoke.
While Harry stayed inside, Rose wandered outside to check out the big boom. She wandered too far. By the time she tried to return, chaos had taken over and she was swept up in the stampede.
Kept pushing everybody up north, up north, up north.
Now confused and wondering where her husband was, the 81-year-old Rose stumbled along for 2.5 miles before winding up at a shelter. It was there that she met a volunteer named Sergio, or as Rose calls him, her angel.
At the beginning, she was one more person there. Slowly you get together and you talk, which is really the only thing you can do.
At first, Rose said she had no family, but after warming up to Sergio, said she had a son in Boston. Though she didn't know his phone number or where he worked, Sergio tracked him down. It paid off. The son reported he had received 2 messages from his father. He said he was alive and well, but the message didn't say where he was.
He's not sure how to talk to an answering machine, and he's probably pretty confused.
He's always been on these heart pills because he had a triple bypass. So I've never known him to be without those pills.
Sergio tried everything, searching shelters, hospitals.
Then I went to the armory, hoping that he would be there looking for her. He wasn't.
So that was to be our story. A couple in their golden anniversary year separated by tragedy. The end. Well, not quite.
We got him.
What?
He left a message on my phone.
The husband did?
Yeah.
Sergio, who just a few minutes before this had left the shelter, came running back to tell Rose the great news. Harry had left a message.
Okay.
Harry, it turns out, had been hunkered down in the couple's apartment in an evacuated zone near the Trade Center. Without electricity, without water, Harry didn't know whether Rose was alive or dead. No one thought to look for him there.
Harry, where have you been, Harry?
Yes, I did. Where's she?
Sergio and Red Cross officials then produced their version of when Harry met Rosie.
I didn't really lose it. Hey, come here.
It was Sergio's notice in the armory that did it when it happened to show up in a local TV news report. A neighbor saw it and told Harry.
I didn't know you where you were, but I would never have gone home. After I met Sergio, we get home.
For Sergio, confirmation of his notion of what volunteering is all about.
We have to concentrate on the small things. Go to a place, and when you find somebody sitting down, sit down by their side like I did and talk to them. And you might be surprised of the information that you can get. And just one person, stick with that person, and with that information, you can make a miracle happen.
Where's Sergio? Sergio!
Sergio was with me. Right here. I saw you. They left the message.
Bruce Burkhardt, CNN, New York.
My goodness. We are joined by Pamela Dixon and Jamila Persall. Persall?
Yes.
How'd I do? Pamela's son and Jamila's fiance are lost. He is lost in the rubble of Trade Center 1, Dewan. Guys, show our viewers Dewan, and Pamela, tell me about your son. Tell me who he is, what he did, what he was doing that day.
He works for mail operations. He works on the 96th floor, but when he comes in, he would go to that floor and then go downstairs to the 93rd floor, where I believe the main mail hub is. But he was early that day, so we're not exactly sure where he was in the building. I don't know if he was on the elevator or if he got the 96 and before he was going down to 93. I know he always told me he took the steps going from 96 to 93 if he didn't have anything heavy. So I'm not sure if he's on the staircase or if he's on in the elevator or just was stuck on the floor somewhere. We don't know where he is.
Do you have hope at this point?
Yes, I do. I'm not giving up.
Okay. He is not just a 20-year-old kid working in an office building. He was a father.
Yes.
Yeah. He was a father. You're doing fine. Okay. You're doing fine. Of an 8-year-old, right?
Yes.
Tell me when you last saw him.
I saw him that morning. He told my daughter to behave herself in school, and he told her that he loved her. I didn't get a chance to speak to him because I was in the bedroom, and she was in the living room. So the last thing he said to me, he was going to mail something for me, and he said, "I have the papers you need, and I'll talk to you later." It's the last thing he said to me.
It was an utterly routine.
Yes,
it's the kind of goodbye you have every kind of working day of your life.
Yes, he was a hard worker. He was at work almost every day. Even when he was sick.
Argument with no one.
Even when he was sick, he was there. He was a wonderful, wonderful guy.
Tell me, I know this is hard, okay?
Yeah.
I know, and tell me when you heard the news of the blast.
I saw it from my window at work. I work for the same company, and when I got to work, everybody was standing, looking out the window, and someone was grabbing me saying, "Pam, the World Trade," and I'm screaming, "Oh my God, my son is there." And as I'm looking at the building with all the smoke, all of a sudden I saw the building fall, and I fell with it. I fell with it. They was trying to take me away from the window. I saw it.
Yeah. And when you heard the news, Jamila?
I had just dropped my daughter off at school, and I came back in the house, and something told me to call his office.
Is that right?
I called his office.
Take a breath and take your time. You're doing fine.
It was like 8:45. When I called the office, a recording came on, and it said the circuits were, not working, temporarily interrupted. So a little while after that, my mom called. She beeped in actually, and she called and told me, turn on the TV, look at the World Trade, something's going on. And by that time, I think it was a little while after the second plane hit, my heart dropped. I mean, he was my friend. He was more than my companion, he was my friend.
Let's stop. You give it up? You still there?
Yeah, I'm okay.
This is so awful, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's about as bad as it gets in life. I appreciate very much. I can't imagine, none of us can imagine what you're going through. None of us.
I'm walking around without a heart.
That you would come and talk to us in a moment like this is much appreciated. I think it reminds people what this is really about, that this is not about just buildings, but it's about lives. Thank you both.
Thank you. But can we say...
Sure, what do you want?
Can we ask anyone who saw him?
Absolutely.
Between the 93rd floor and the 97th floor. Anyone, if you saw him, he was well known throughout the company. He worked on the 96th floor, but he delivered mail to different areas of the building. So he could have been anywhere at that time. We need to hear from any mailroom people, any technology people, anyone in that area who may have saw him.
Anyone who knows anything.
In the staircase, anyone, can you please contact us?
Because all information matters right now.
Yes.
Thank you both again.
Thank you so much for having us. Thank you.
God bless.
Thank you.
Aaron.
Aaron, it is so hard, and people really wondering what they can do. Here at CNN and at CNN.com, we've come up with one small thing in trying to help people find their relatives and their loved ones. Of course, you've seen the pictures of people going throughout New York City holding up pictures just as that family just did, wondering if there would be any information on if people had seen those loved ones. We've done something here at CNN.com. I'm going to turn your attention to our website here. Of course, if you go to the homepage, you'll see the big red banner with a special report. But if you scroll down a little bit on CNN.com, you'll see a part that talks about missing. Send photos and view photos. And if you click onto that area, you come up with an area that allows you both to view photos of people who might have been missing if you were anywhere near the World Trade Center on Tuesday. Also, if you're one of the desperate families looking for information about one of your relatives or loved ones, we're encouraging you to send photos into the website. It tells you there how to do it. We want to feature one person whose picture is on CNN.com. Oh, I think. All right, well, I'm going to go through it with you just to show you how it works. You click on to view photos. Work with me here. And then you'll see there's the alphabet. We're going to be featuring Bridget Esposito. So we're going to the first area, A through F. Here's her name under E, Bridget Esposito. And we click on, you can see Bridget Thomas Esposito, 34, her hometown we don't have right now. Her employer was American Express Travel at Marsh, USA. We have with us on the phone right now Bridget's father, Maurice Thomas. Mr. Thomas, thanks for joining us today.
You're welcome.
We have just basic information about your daughter on our website. 5'3", 120 pounds, dark brown hair, dark brown eyes. Last seen on the 94th floor of the first tower. What else can you tell us about your daughter that doesn't fit into this simple form that we have here on CNN.com?
Well, Bridget is originally from Brooklyn, New York, and she has always been a fantastic kid. I mean, as a youngster, some days I was looking for her, and she would be in some elderly person's home, keeping their company. She's been such a lovely girl.
We didn't call it and want to get you on the phone to get you upset. We want just
No, that's quite all right.
Yeah, I understand.
Everything helps.
Can you tell us what she did, what she was doing for American Express Travel?
She was a travel agent doing corporate travel for Marsh McLennan, one of their accounts. So it was like an on-hand travel.
So she would have been at work on Tuesday morning, just like many Tuesday mornings.
She started at 7 a.m. until 3 p.m., and at about 20 minutes to 9, one of her friends, Myra, who lives in Florida, called her and spoke to her minutes before the blast. I was at hospice because I volunteered there singing for the dead or the families, whatever. And my wife called me, and I turned the television on and just went into shock.
When was the last time you were able to speak with your daughter?
On Monday night.
And what did you talk about?
And she spoke to my wife, and she said, I just had a bad dream that Daddy died. I don't know if that's a premonition of her own death.
Were you able to talk with her that night, too?
No, I was asleep, and my wife didn't want to wake me.
We see, of course, that your family or someone has sent in this picture of her for anybody who does have information about Bridget. Are you still hopeful that she'll be found, that perhaps maybe she was injured and is at one of the hospitals and you haven't been able to make contact yet?
Her sister, Yvette, who, the two of them, I've never seen two sisters so close. They're best friends. She has been in the streets with Bridget's husband, Michael Esposito, every day from about 11 in the morning to 11 at night, going to all the hospitals, walking around. Yvette has been carrying a picture of Bridget. She has been interviewed all over. And we have a son who is living in Atlanta, and we're all trying to do whatever we can. I've not gone to New York because I have some bad legs. I can't walk very far. And my daughter Yvette said, Dad, there's nothing you can do here because you can't drive around and you have to walk all day and you can't do it. So I'm waiting for any slight word. So if it is closure, then I'll go.
Well, we understand you're doing your part today, sir, by talking with us here on CNN, by sending the message and sending your daughter's story across the country and around the world. And I realize this is such a difficult time for you and your family. I want to thank you for taking time out to talk with us and draw attention to Bridget's picture and her story. And certainly, we wish you the best of luck. And
I
send our
heard there are
thoughts and
about
prayers.
17 100 people in hospitals in Jersey, I don't know, but Yvette has different parts, like hair of Bridget's for DNA or whatever. I don't know.
Well, we will hold out hope for you, sir, and your family, that Bridget is one of those who is in the hospital. And once again, we do send our best. That's Maurice Thomas, father of Bridget Thomas Esposito, one of the many, many missing people at the World Trade Center. We want to encourage you, too, if you have a missing loved ones, please send your photos. We'll post them for you on CNN.com. The email address to send them along and the information is very simple, missing@CNN.com. And if you need more information, just log on to CNN.com, onto our website, click on missing photos, and all the directions are right there for you to send along the photos and the information. We really, really are trying to help. Aaron, up to you.
Thank you. I just want to say one thing briefly here. These are very difficult things to hear. This is, you stand here with people whose hearts are breaking, and there's a very fine line here, and we are very aware of it. But it's important, I think, not only to help, to get information out on people, but it is also important to remind you and all of us who do this that these are not numbers. These are people who have kids and moms and girlfriends and the whole thing. They're not famous people. They're not going to appear on the front page of any paper, but they are real people, and it's important to keep that in mind in all of this. Down on the streets, the recovery effort continues. On this sunny Saturday in New York, Martin Savage has been on the streets near Ground Zero for the last 3 or 4 days. Marty, come on in.
Aaron, we've been talking to people as they come and go, talking to people who are involved in the rescue operation. Robert Perry is one of those people. He is what is known professionally as a pile driver. I guess more generally you could call him a construction worker. And he has been working on the building and the debris field today. Tell us what you've been doing down there, Robert.
We've been cutting a lot of the large steel sections out of the way to allow the demolition contractors to remove the smaller debris, so that hopefully as they search through it, if there's any survivors and or bodies, that they can access them.
Now, this is not steel girders as they used to be. This is steel that's been twisted and torn.
No, it's like it's never been. It's dangerous because there's a lot of stress on it because of its position, because of the way it was driven down by the floors on top of it, and it has to be handled correctly with rigging so that when we do cut it away, it doesn't rip out or fan out or come back into the crane or the hoisting apparatus or hurt other people, which, you know, we really don't need at this point.
Do they tell you specifically where to cut?
Yes, there's supervisors there and structural engineers that are making sure that too big of pieces aren't taken at one time, that pieces that might swing unruly if they're not cut into small enough pieces aren't removed prior to the sequence that they need to be removed.
Well, let me ask you this, since you've been down there and you know far better than most of us. When we talk about the issue of hope and the possibility of survival, what do you think the chances are?
Oh, there's definitely good possibilities. I've been told by workers who've actually been in the subterranean portion that there's a lot of nooks and crannies and bigger areas that somebody could possibly hold up in. Plus, there's a lot of snack shops with water, food. You know, it's conceivable that somebody could be alive under there for a couple of weeks if they just have the patience and the hardness to stick out the trauma.
You mentioned that you had heard some of those who had gone down there had seen some areas literally untouched.
I overheard a couple of the rescue personnel saying that they've been in areas of the sub-basement where in the mall area that there's a lot of activity as far as shops, all of the water. I think some of the water is even still running. So,
what are they using to try to investigate these areas? I know people go down there if they can, but what if the area is too small? What else do they use?
Well, they use like cameras mounted on extension poles, telescopic poles. They use listening devices, which is hard to use because of the surrounding collateral noise. But they have like those fiber optic cameras that they're using and so forth. I saw some of the crews that are using those. they've got quite a bit of every kind of piece of equipment, you know, that they could possibly use is there.
Have you heard of people hearing noises, hearing sounds, indications?
I've only what you've also heard, but I've never heard specifically from any one person. I overheard a couple of firemen talking that they think they might have heard someone further up on the scrap pile that you know, I was away from.
Today was the first day you went to work. First
Yes.
time you've been down there.
Yes.
And you walk up face to face. What did you think?